Over the past year, I have been sharing a lot more of the behind the scenes of how I use Procreate and Adobe Fresco on the iPad to create my artwork or the designs for projects and products that I am working on. And one of the questions that I get asked a lot is which of the two apps I prefer and which of the two I would recommend to beginners or other creatives who are looking to grow and scale their digital illustration or even just begin monetizing it. So I thought it would be really fun to do a video where I break down the differences of the two apps and do a little side-by-side comparison, kind of like the showdown of the digital creation app, and give you my recommendations on which I think you should be using for your creative art. So let's get into it. If you are new here, welcome to my cozy creative side of YouTube and the internet. My name is Laura and I am a digital illustrator, and I have been using my iPad to create my art and my designs and to create products and so much more for 5 or 6 years now. And I am so excited to share some of my personal feelings about Procreate versus Adobe Fresco, and which I am currently leaning more towards in 2025 for my own illustration and digital art practice and business. But there's so much in both of these apps to get through, and I didn't want to overwhelm any of you, especially if you are a beginner or you're someone who's just bought your first iPad and you're trying to figure out which of these two apps is the best to download and the best to invest your time in learning. So to make it as easy and to share as much about both of the apps as I can possibly fit into one video, I'm going to compare the apps on a couple of different points and then give you a highlight of my favorite tools in both of them. And then finally, I'll share my personal opinion on which app kind of comes out on top and which I think that you should be using for your digital art and which I am currently preferring. So let's get started by looking at both of the apps individually and the different features that they have. Let's start off with Procreate. I've been using Procreate for 5 or 6 years now. It was like one of the first apps that I downloaded when I bought my first iPad. In fact, I saved up to buy my first iPad in order to be able to use Procreate. First of all, Procreate is an iOS only app, so it is only available for the iPad. It is a purchase app, so you pay to download it, but it's a one-time payment. There's no subscription plan. There's no hidden fees inside the app or in-app purchases. It really genuinely is a pay once and you own it for life. So I do have a ton of videos already here on my channel where I go through all of the details of the Procreate app. If you are new and you are interested in learning Procreate, I will link a few of them underneath this video that I recommend that you go and watch next. But for now, let's take a look at some of the basic features of Procreate so we can then compare it to Adobe Fresco. One of the things that I really love about Procreate is that its user face is so streamlined and not overwhelming. So this is my main gallery. One feature that I really love about Procreate is that you can group your canvases together in stacks, which are kind of like folders for your files. For example, I have a stack here with all of my Instagram posts that I've created in Procreate over the years. To create a new canvas or a new piece of artwork, we just press the plus in the top right-hand corner, and then we can either create a canvas that is set to certain size that we need, or we can select from the preloaded canvases that are already in there. So this is a Procreate canvas when you open it up. I do have a full Procreate tour on my channel, so if you want to go and have a look at that and get like a full breakdown of every single tool that's in here, I'll put a little pop-up card here that you can just tap on that video, or again, I'll have it linked down below so you can watch it next. The creme de la creme of Procreate is the brush library. There is literally a brush for every type of traditional medium that you could think of. When you download the app, you do get like a preloaded brush library with tons of brushes to choose from to get you started. So there's a lot to already explore when you download the app, and you don't really need to like pay for or purchase extra brushes if you're just getting started out. All of the brushes in Procreate are 100% customizable. I also love that with Procreate, if you want to customize a brush, but you want to also like save the original settings, you can swipe right to duplicate the brush, and then you can kind of edit the duplicated version. It's also really easy to create your own brushes in Procreate. So you can like bring in shapes to create stamp brushes. You could import like photos of textures to create your own texture brushes. And if that isn't enough for you, there is tons and tons and tons of Procreate brushes available online. Another thing that I really love about Procreate is the quick settings. So you can tap on the setting menu and go to preferences, and then if you select gesture control, there is a ton of gesture control settings in here. So depending on what you create and what you would like your quick settings to do, there's a lot that you can adjust in here. Let's now have a look at Adobe Fresco so we can kind of compare them side by side. Fresco is a free to download app, but you do need an Adobe Cloud subscription. This is what our Adobe homepage looks like when we open it up. So it's quite similar to an Adobe app if you are familiar with using Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator. This is very similar to the layout that you will be used to when you open up those programs to start creating a new document. So again, there'll be like preloaded custom sizes up the top, which is similar to how Adobe apps generally are, but you can also tap the create one, where you can select through some of the other templates that they have, which are the classic Adobe templates like print and digital. But then of course you can also click custom size, where you can set up the pixels or centimeters or inches, the width, the height, the print size, the PPI, and all of those settings that again, we are used to seeing from an Adobe app. The layout is very similar feel to Adobe programs, which if you have used them makes the learning curve a lot easier to navigate because the symbols are the same as what you're going to be used to, and the tools are generally in the same place as to what you're going to be used to. We have different types of brushes in Adobe Fresco, which makes it a little bit different. You have traditional pixel brushes or raster brushes, and again, the app comes preloaded with some brushes with everything from like ink to like charcoal or pencil brushes. You also have live brushes in Adobe Fresco, which are completely unique to this app and really great if you're someone who is a traditional paint artist and want to mimic that in your digital art. So the live brushes have a completely different feel to anything else I've used. If you use like a watercolor brush, it actually reacts on the canvas the same way that it like a watercolor brush would. The longer you hold the pencil, the more like the bleed happens if you wash over. Also, if you change your color, you can mix the colors on live brushes. The third type of brush inside an Adobe Fresco is vector brushes. When you use a pixel or live brush, you create a pixel layer. When you use the vector brushes in Adobe Fresco, it creates a separate vector layer. So you can't draw with vector brushes on a pixel layer, and vice versa. You can't draw with a pixel brush on a vector layer. And you can tell the difference when you look at your layers menu over here. The vector layers are the ones with the little circle symbol, and then the pixel layers are the one where you have like the little grid line pixel. You also have like an eraser tool, a smudge tool, a selection tool, and a resize tool, all of your basic tools going on here. And just like with Procreate, you can customize your brush, so you can tap on your little brush down here when you have it open to like change the smoothing. Well, you can't customize them as much as you can a Procreate brush. There's still a lot that you can do to actually get the brushes to fit your need and your preferences once you've played around with them a little bit. On the right hand side of Adobe Fresco's workspace, you have like your other settings. So you can tap on this little symbol to open your layers. You can leave your layers open while you're working, or you can hide them depending on whether you'd like to be able to see what layer you're working on. It helps me avoid accidentally drawing on the wrong layer, which if you are a Procreate user, you will know that is a general like pet peeve of the Procreate app, is that you often don't find out you've drawn on the wrong layer until you're like way into the detail and it's too late to go back and change it. You also have your layer properties. You can tap on any layer at any time to change the blend mode, to reduce the opacity. Again, you can do the same inside in Procreate. And then if you tap these three dots down the bottom here, you come up with like your other layer options where you can add layers, hide layers, merge layers, mask layers, and all of those traditional layer tools that you would be looking for. So that is the basics of Adobe Fresco and the basics of Procreate. Next, I wanted to share with you some of my personal favorite features. Back to Procreate again, one of my favorite features that Procreate have brought out in recent years, and something that I don't see a lot of other creators talking about. I feel like this is a very underrated feature of Procreate, is their Page Assist tool. So I actually use the Page Assist in Procreate a lot to create like project plans. So here is an example from my 2025 planner collection. So I have like my mood boards down the bottom from different images that I collected as inspiration, and then that moves into my sketches and my ideas about how I would like to lay out the pages, right through to like a list of the different planners that I want to include in this collection. I love using the Page Assist and kind of treating Procreate like a digital sketchbook. Another feature that I love about Procreate, which I've kind of already highlighted, is how customizable the brushes are. I love that you can create folders in the brush library. So all of the brushes that I use a lot, I've like stacked them together in one like folder in the brush library. I've also created my own brushes in Procreate because it's so easy to do. So things like this little cloud brush that I just created by importing in like a shape that I drew on a Procreate square canvas, like copied the shape, I pasted it in here, and then I was able to make this like stamp brush that is a cloud. Another feature that I really love in Procreate is the animation assist. I've created so many GIFs using the animation assist, and I also have a ton of tutorials here on my YouTube channel if you want to learn how to create your own GIFs using animation assist. Next, let's hop back over to Fresco and let me show you some of my favorite features over here. First up is the vector brushes. The reason that I decided to start using and learning how to use Adobe Fresco, I was starting to take on a few more commercial projects where my artwork needed to be either like scaled up or like available in different sizes, and having to vectorize artwork that I created in Procreate, while it is possible, was quite a complicated process. I do have a full tutorial again here on my channel where I show you how I vectorize Procreate artwork layer by layer using Adobe Illustrator, but when I realized that Fresco had vector brushes, I decided to give this a try, and it has changed my whole digital art workflow because now I can create vector art and vector layers by drawing in exactly the same way that I would in Procreate. Another feature that I really love in Adobe Fresco is the Draw Inside tool. This works a little bit like a clipping mask, but without having to create a whole like separate layer. So if I just wanted to like put a stripe on the flower or something, I can turn on this Draw Inside, and then when I create my lines, it only clips them to the shape as it's there. Also works the same for like drawing behind the shape. The third feature that I really love is the quick export to Adobe Illustrator. So if I tap on this share button up here, there's all of my export options, but what I love is this one here that says open a copy for Illustrator, iPad, or desktop. When I tap that, it actually sends it over to Adobe Illustrator on my desktop. So for when I'm creating artwork here, I don't want to finish it off. Maybe I want to turn it into a pattern, or I want to turn it into a mock-up, or I want to just like start the product creation process. I can do my drawing on my iPad, which is the way that I prefer, and then I can tap this button and send it over to my desktop to finish up the design in Adobe Illustrator. So the last question to answer is, which one is better, or which one would I recommend? Honestly, I think it's really down to you and your creative style or your artistic style and your creative workflow, or where you are in your digital art journey. So if you are a beginner or someone who's just looking to learn digital illustration more as a hobby or like a cozy thing to do, Procreate is definitely what I would go for. When it comes to starting out, Procreate is definitely more beginner friendly. It's very easy to learn. You can work on like mastering one thing at a time because of that really like streamlined, minimal user interface. You're not going to get overwhelmed with tools. You can find everything you need as soon as you open it, and then as you get more confident, you can explore those menus and all of the other tool options. However, if you are someone who is starting digital illustration because you want to either learn how to digitalize your traditional art practice, or you have an end goal where you would like to actually sell your artwork or license your artwork or monetize your art business, then I would definitely recommend Adobe Fresco because of those vector brushes. The question I've been asked a lot is which one I prefer, and honestly, I find it hard to pick between the two. Procreate, as I said, was the whole reason that I bought my first iPad, and it is still the app that I reach for a lot. But honestly, I feel like Adobe Fresco is going to be the app that I end up using a lot more. Since my business has grown and my goals for my art has also changed, I see the importance in creating vector versions of my illustration. So I've found that I've been reaching for Adobe Fresco for my final artwork a lot more, and it's definitely become my app of choice when it comes to creating illustrations for designs and final projects. Procreate at this point has kind of become my digital sketchbook. It's where I put all of my ideas, but it definitely has that feel more of like a sketchbook where I open it more to work on ideas rather than illustrations for projects that I'm gonna like turn into a product or I'm gonna license to a client. My top pick for 2025 is definitely Adobe Fresco, also because of the fact that I use Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Premiere Pro for the other parts of my workflow. I am an Adobe Cloud girly, and so Fresco has definitely slowly but surely come out on top above Procreate. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, be sure to let me know by clicking that thumbs up button. And if you haven't done so already, click subscribe to join the growing creative community here on YouTube. I would love to know which of these two apps you prefer, if you've used both of them, or if you have another digital illustration app or program that you've used that you actually prefer to these two. Let me know down in the comments what your digital illustration preference is, or which of these apps you are going to be investing your time in learning more or using more in 2025. I will see you guys in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.